Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well today. Well, this is the introductory video for economic development, which is the first section of development, the development economic syllabus for IB economics. And this video is meant to give you a general overview of what you should be able to do. For example, you should be, by the end of this series, to distinguish between economic growth and development. You should be able to explain the relationship between economic growth and economic development. You should be able to explain and give examples of common characteristics of developing nations, and explain and give examples of the diversity that exists between developing nations. And being able to do that will enable you to understand how the Millennium Development Goals, right, contribute to economic development, or designed anyway, to contribute to economic development around the world. But at the core of study of economics, right, is this understanding that economic development is the fact that economic growth is not equivalent to economic development. What that means is, and there's a typo right there, but what that means is, it means that growth does not mean development. Just like a child who's going through adolescence, development happens at various stages and various degrees of spurts here and there, but growth just sort of is really obvious, and it's just like, the vertical expansion of somebody. So if you think about a country experiencing economic growth, okay, there's this expansion of a country going up, becoming wealthier, so they're getting taller. But that doesn't mean that they're becoming really well developed. And it takes years for a person, right? You could say it never ends, but if you think about a child from birth to the time that they're, say, 21 years old, when both men and women are sort of fully developed human adults, growth has happened, and that's really obvious. But the full development of the person intellectually, the development of the person physically, and all of the maturation processes that must happen, that is development. So when a child is developed, it's multifaceted, which means it's complex, which means it's multidimensional, and that's a very nice way of thinking about a country. Economic growth is much more one-dimensional, right? An increase in real GDP over time is economic growth, and that's just like a child getting taller. But traditional economics has tended to make the assumption that increased output of an economy, along with the pattern of industrialization that accompanies economic growth, is equivalent to economic development. And you, as an IB economics student, are going to see that that is not true. All right, and that's the goal. The other thing is, remember, this economic development chapter here is one piece, the beginning piece of understanding the whole concept of development. And you can't really think of any one of these chapters as separate from the whole. So what is meant by economic development? Well, here's a basic definition: an improvement in the welfare of people in a nation, okay? But in reality, it's far more multidimensional, right? Development is about increasing people's freedoms, reducing poverty. It's about public provision of education, healthcare, law and order. It's about the guarantee of civil liberties and the opportunities for civic participation. And development economists will tell you that without doing all of these things, right, without incorporating all of these things, by doing just one or two or three, that it's not fully developed. It's just like a child, right? If you acquire language, does that mean you're fully developed? No, right? If you become stronger and are able to, I don't know, contribute to farming, right? In a traditional farming thing, and if you're a man, does that mean as a 14-year-old boy that he's fully developed? No, of course not, right? All of these things must happen, and governments must keep these in mind. And of course, we're continuing with this analogy that government is the parent of a society. They need to be thinking about all of these things, just as a parent of a child needs to think about the full development of a child from a nutritional standpoint, intellectual standpoint, education standpoint, a health standpoint. Governments need to think about the country as their child and think about all aspects of that. If they do that, then they will have a developed nation. If parents take care of all aspects of a child, they will have a developed child, or a well-developed child. Okay? So there's the introductory video to economic development. I hope you found it to be helpful, and we'll talk to you in a bit.